Hey guys, this is Laura from the Sketching Pad. I am going to show you a pottery painting technique that we do often here at the studio. This is called marbling, and this works with both your acrylic and your glaze kits that you got from us. I'm going to be demonstrating with the acrylic set today, but just remember it works with the glaze as well. You follow the same exact steps. The only thing to really keep in mind is that if you are using the glaze, your colors are not going to be quite as vibrant as this tile is at the beginning, because glaze has that extra step of needing to be fired. That's when all the colors really come out in the glaze. This gnome here, his hat was done in the glaze, and it's still really bright and colorful, but when it was being painted, it was very muted and pastel-y. So just keep that in mind. Don't be concerned if your gnome doesn't look exactly the way you want it to look in the end result. I promise that it will. So what you're going to need for this is your primary acrylic or glaze pods. You're going to want a water cup, a mason jar, like a Dixie cup will work, or a solo cup, anything like that. You're going to want shaving cream. You're going to want a paper plate or a styrofoam plate, anything like that will work. If you are doing it with the glaze, you can just put the shaving cream directly onto a table because glaze is washable, so it is not going to hurt your surfaces. However, if you're doing the acrylic, you don't want to do that because acrylic is not washable. So we're going to demonstrate this technique on our gnome. Something to keep in mind before you get started is that this technique does use a decent amount of the acrylic or glaze that comes in your pod. So if you wanted that color for other items that might have come in your kit, just make sure that you're not choosing a large object or a large area to put this on. So we're going to do it on his little hat. If you've got like the monster or something like that, you don't want to necessarily cover the entire monster in the marbling because it will use up a decent amount of your paint. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take and we're going to paint our gnome's hat with a base color. Now remember, I am using the acrylic kit for this. If you are doing the glaze kit, don't do a base color. This technique works better if you've got white as the under color. Another general rule about how to choose what colors for your swirls. The general rule is that colors that are next to each other in your kit blend well together. So like yellow and orange, those two blend well together. Orange and red, those two blend really well together. Pink and blue, those two work. Purple and blue, those two work really well together, or like green and blue, those work well together. So that's the general rule, but if you like cross over too many, like yellow and purple, that's going to make brown. So if you want your colors to be bright, just pick colors that are close to each other. Warm colors go well together and cool colors go well together typically. The pink and the purple go well together also if you want something that's like pretty bright. That one is a good suggestion. But your base color, you want to do lighter than your swirls. So I'm going to do the gnome's hat warm colors. I have one that's in cool colors that's not finished. So this is the green and blue swirled together, and the base color is light blue. for that one. So you're going to want to take your brush. You can either use the small or the large round brush, whichever one you prefer. So you're going to open up your white pod. And I'm going to do a base of yellow for this one. So I'm going to take yellow, a little yellow, and a little white, and mix those together. I'm just doing it on my plate. Then you'll take and paint your base color. Another thing to keep in mind, guys, is that you want to do this step before you do anything else on your gnome. So like, or whatever thing that you might be doing this on, like a monster. You want, because this is kind of a messy technique, so if you get and go ahead and like were to paint his beard and his face and all that before, this technique is going to mess that up and you would have to redo it. So just do this part first, and then you can paint over any of the messiness that it might create. And once you're done painting the base color, then you are going to blow dry it or let it air dry. Either way, it doesn't take long at all for it to dry. Okay, so now I've got my base color. I'm going to let you guys take a look at that. And then I'm going to dry it, and I will show you guys what we're going to do with our shaving cream. Okay, so now that it's dry, we're going to take our shaving cream, give it a good shake, and we're going to do a small little dollop on the plate, and we're going to smooth it out a little bit with our finger. Now we want this dollop to be relatively thick, so I don't know, like an inch thick, something like that, because we're going to take and we're going to roll our gnome's hat in the shaving cream, and we want to make sure that it's thick enough that you're not like smudging it on the pushing down so hard that it touches the plate underneath. So we're going to do this. Okay, so you can see my dollop here. Now we're going to take and we're going to flatten it a little bit with our finger. If you don't want to get your fingers in it, you can use like an old credit card, or you could use a knife potentially, like a butter knife, something like that. So you want it to be still a little fluffy, an inch thick to an inch and a half thick. And then we're going to just wipe off our finger on the rag, or if you want to wash your hands in the sink, you can do that too. And then we're going to take about half of your pod for this. So I'm going to swirl, I'm going to do red and orange swirls. I would recommend not doing any more than 3 colors in a swirl pattern, so that it doesn't like get too muddy. So if you want to do like all the warm colors, you could do that, but I wouldn't do any more than 3, plus we're going to add a little bit of white to it if you're doing your acrylic. If you're doing, like I said, if you're doing the glaze, then you don't need the white because you have a base of white. So we're going to take a scoop with the back of one of our paint brushes. And the reason why we want to use the back of the paintbrush is because the bristles will kind of collect the paint, whereas this, it's a little bit easier to smooth out. So you're going to take and kind of dot and kind of try to get that acrylic off of your brush and onto the shaving cream. You can always add more of the color if you want to, but I'm going to go ahead and add the orange. So I'm going to take a pretty decent scoop of the orange. I'm turning my pot a little to the side so I can get a good scoop. Alrighty. So I'm getting my orange, I'm getting my red in there. Get a little bit more orange. All right, so I'm going to add a little bit of white. Now keep in mind that because I'm adding white to this, it's going to mix a little with the colors underneath. And it's because there's red in this, it's going to make it a little bit pinky with the white. So if you don't want any pinkiness, you don't have to use white. I'm just kind of dotting it in place. The white is kind of optional. And then I'm wiping off the end of my paintbrush. Now I'm going to take and swirl this together. So I'm going to get it a little closer so you guys can see, but I'm going to take the end of the paintbrush and kind of drag it through like this. So you don't want to swirl it so much that it mixes together into a huge blob of one color, but you wanted to have like a little bit of variety. Now you're going to take your gnome and you're going to take the hat and you're going to roll it like that. The same is true if you have like the Easter egg basket or something, then you're going to roll it like that. The general rule is if you've got something flat, you just kind of press it in. If you've got something round, you roll it. So I'm going to kind of take the hat and make it close to the edge of the rim of the hat. So I'm going to have half of it on and half of it off. And then you're just going to you're going to roll until the whole hat is covered like that. So you can see how that's looking. And then we're going to take this guy to the sink and we're going to lightly rinse it off. You don't want to rinse too hard or the acrylic is going to come off. So you're just going to turn the water on low and lightly rinse it. So just kind of hold the gnome underneath the water stream and don't rub it, just kind of lightly let the water take the shaving cream off. So I'm going to show you what that looks like.
All right, guys, welcome to the studio bathroom. I'm going to show you how to rinse this off. So you're just going to turn it on really lightly. And you're going to let the water gently take off the shaving cream. But you're not going to rub it or anything. You're just going to let the water do the work. So you can see how that yellow that I put as a base color is starting to come through now. And so I'm going to stop right there. It's kind of hard to know like when is the good stopping point because you don't want to take all of it off, but you can see how it's like running all over him, and that's why you want to do this step first before you do anything else.
All right, guys, so now that you have the swirl on there, you're going to let it dry for a while before you do anything else. You don't want to blow dry this, at least not too soon, because it with the acrylic at least. With the glaze you can blow dry it, but the swirling with the acrylic does a really thick coat of acrylic, and you want to let thicker coats of acrylic dry by themselves at least for a while. So you're just going to set it to the side, let it dry, and then you can continue painting the rest of him. If you didn't like the swirl that you got for the acrylic, you can, at this point, because it's still wet, you can wash it off. Or if you let it dry and you still don't like it, you can paint a new base coat over the top of it and it will cover your swirl. Now, if you're doing the glaze, however, you don't want to rinse it off and try again because something about the shaving cream, the shaving cream will like mess with the firing process if you do it multiple times in a row. So you really only want to do this once and then leave it and don't try to do it again. So if you guys had any questions that we didn't answer in this tutorial, just let us know. We would be happy to help you work through any problems you might have run into, but we'd also love to see what you created. So post on Facebook, tag us in it, or send us a private message. We'd love to hear from you. I'll show you one more time this finished gnome so you can see, maybe get some ideas for how you want to paint your gnome and how well the edges clean up. Don't forget about your acrylic clear coat. If you didn't choose glaze, the clear coat will make it look shiny just like it was if it had been fired. All right, guys, I hope you had fun. We'll see you soon.